Hello aviators, how are you? My name is Magnar Nordahl. I'm an airline captain with interest in aviation history. This is the third video about the Northrop F-5. In the previous videos I told you the story of the first generation, the F-5A and B Freedom Fighter, and the F-5C Scotsy Tiger. And you gave you a thorough walk around. And now it's time to welcome you on board. Some say the cockpit is quite roomy, others say it's tight, like putting on your last piece of the flight gear. Anyway, they all agree it's well organized. This is an F-5A from the Royal Norwegian Air Force. It was introduced in 1966 and it has gone through many upgrades. And for example, a radar warning receiver has been installed. If you are familiar with the F-5E on the DCS or similar platforms, you will feel at home because apart from the missing radar screen and some updated instruments, very little has changed from the A model. I will start on the left side and work my way to the right. The aft part of the left console is not visible on the picture, and all I have is an illustration from a brochure made by Northrop. Starting from the aft, we have a circuit breaker panel. Next is what appears to be a storage compartment for small items. Then we have a panel for the stability augmenter system and a rudder trim. The pitch damper and the yaw damper are removing oscillations, making the flight more comfortable. This knob is used to set the rudder trim. It only works when the yaw damper is on. Next is the control panel for AGM-12 bullpup missile. This is an air-to-ground missile that is guided to the target with a little joystick. The RF-5 had a control panel for the cameras here. To the left of the throttles is the flap lever, and we can now return to the main picture. Here are the two throttle levers. They have positions for off, idle, military, which is max power without afterburner, and max, which is afterburner, and flight max, which gives max power with afterburner. The throttle for engine number 2 has a few controls. The black switch is for the speed brakes. When you pull the switch aft, the speed brakes will extend, and vice versa. The black button is the transmitter switch for the radio. The red button is to activate the seeker head on the Sidewinder missile. Here are the controls for the JATO rockets. JATO means Jet Assisted Takeoff. This is a rocket booster that delivers 1,000 pound force for 15 seconds. And because it's a rocket, it's also called RATO, Rocket Assisted Takeoff. Up to 4 of them can be installed under the fuselage. This is the arm switch, and this switch is labeled ignition and jettison. The red button is probably used to activate the rockets. Ahead of the throttles is a control panel for the directional gyro. The direction gyro operates automatically, but if the automatic system fails, the pilot can take manual control and adjust the gyro in accordance with the magnetic compass located on a windshield frame. The direction gyro drifts with the rotation of the Earth. The rate of drift depends on the geographic latitude. At the North Pole or the South Pole, the drift is 15 degrees per hour. At 30 degrees latitude, the drift is half of that, 7.5 degrees per hour. At the equator, the drift is 0. Therefore, there is a selector where the pilot can set the present latitude of the aircraft. This is the pitch trim indicator. It is very important to set the pitch trim correctly before takeoff. The pitch trim is set with a switch on the top of the control stick. Here is the cabin pressure altimeter in thousands of feet. The cabin pressure controller is on the right-hand vertical panel. Here are the switches for the fuel shutoff valves. They are guarded in open position. The aircraft has 2 antennas for the UHF radio. One is embedded in the tail fin and the other is located under the nose. The switch has three positions: upper or lower antenna and auto, which is the normal position. With this setting, the upper antenna is used when the aircraft is on the ground, while the lower antenna is used in flight. This is the switch for the landing lights and taxi lights. And here are the push buttons you use to start the engines. This is the weapons panel, missile volume. The Sidewinder missiles are heat-seeking and they emit a sound when a heat source is within the range. This guarded switch is for the cannons and the gun camera. The default position is camera only. The next switch is to arm the bombs. And this selects the defines which weapons you will use. GAM-83 was the initial name of the AGM-12 bullpup, and GAR-8 was the first name of the AIM-9B Sidewinder. And RKT means rockets. Underneath do you select the pylons you will launch your weapons from when you squeeze the trigger. To the right are the controls you use to jettison the external stores. And here is a true story. An F-5 was about to depart from Rygge Air Force Base in Norway. The aircraft was configured with 3 external tanks for a ferry flight. The controller instructed the pilot to hold, probably because of other traffic, for example on final. And while waiting, the pilot decided to wipe off some dust from the cylinder that protects this red button. As you now understand, the push button is used to jettison all external stores. It is for emergency use, for example after an engine failure just after takeoff. The second protected push button is used to jettison the stores from the pylons selected with this rotary knob. GAR-8 are the wingtips, where the Sidewinder missiles are located. CL is the centerline pylon. And then we have inboard and outboard pylons. Those two buttons require electrical power to work. If you have lost all electrical power, you revert to plan B, and that is to pull the yellow handle labeled X Store Jettison. This will energize a backup battery and jettison the external stores. And the handle is protected with a safety pin when the aircraft is parked on the ground. On the top of the instrument panel is the gun sight. The controls are on the pedestal, which is not the best location. Later on, the controls were relocated to this area. This is the handle for the drag chute. To deploy the chute, pull the lever 3 inches out. To release the chute, turn the handle 90 degrees clockwise and then pull the lever another 3 inches out. This is the landing gear selector. It is in the up position and that is not logical when it's parked on the ground, but this is a museum piece. Above are 3 green lights, which are illuminated when the landing gear is down and locked. Inside the gear lever is a red warning light that will illuminate if the landing gear is not locked down, or if the landing gear is up and one or more gear doors are open, or if the aircraft is below 9,500 feet and the gear is up and the airspeed is low and the power is reduced. In case the landing gear doesn't retract after takeoff, you can push and hold this button. It overrides the down locks, allowing for the landing gear to be retracted. To the left of the landing gear lever is a push button to silence the alerts from the flaps and landing gear warnings. Further down is an emergency landing gear extension handle. When you pull it out, the up locks will open and the landing gear will extend with the help of gravity and wind force. To the right is the flap indicator. The zebra stripes mean the flaps is in an intermediate position. That's what we use for takeoff. Other indications are up when it's fully up and full when it's fully down. This appears to be 2 indicator lights of some sort. Below is the lever for the arresting hook. It was not standard on the A and B models, but was installed in the models ordered by Norway. The F-5E and F models have arresting hook as standard. Above the drag chute handle is a master warning light. To the right is a standby attitude indicator. Next is the display for the radar warning receiver. And now, the flight instruments. The airspeed indicator shows the speeds in hundreds of knots. The yellow line shows maximum speed with the landing gear extended. The red line shows maximum indicated airspeed. The white triangle is called the index and is moved with this knob. The pilot will use it to mark his target speed. Finally, there is a Mach number indicator. The Mach number is the aircraft speed relative to the speed of sound, and the speed of sound varies with the atmospheric temperature. Next, we have the most important instrument when flying in low visibility, and that is the attitude indicator. The gray knob is used to adjust the aircraft symbol to the horizon before you depart. Next, we have the altimeter. The needle shows hundreds of feet, and the counter shows the altitude in thousands and hundreds of feet. This knob is used to set the reference pressure in millibar. Today it's called hectopascal, but it's the same scale. Below is the vertical speed indicator. It's graded in thousands of feet. To the left, we have the navigation instruments. This is the directional indicator showing magnetic heading. It has two needles or pointers showing the direction to a ground station. One needle shows the direction to an NDB, non-directional beacon, if a receiver is installed in the aircraft. The receiver is called ADF. The other needle shows the direction to a TACAN station. TACAN is an acronym for Tactical Air Navigation. It is a military navigation system in the UHF band and provides a bearing and distance in nautical miles to the ground station. The civilian equivalent is VOR-DME. The distance is shown in a window here, but since the power is off, we can't see it. Further to the left, we have a combined course and glide slope indicator. It can be used for ILS, Instrument Landing System, but this aircraft didn't have it. So the horizontal glide slope bar was inoperative and not visible when the instrument was powered. To follow a specific track towards a TACAN, you will set the magnetic course in this window with this knob. You will be on that course when the vertical needle is centered. This, together with the distance information, allows you to fly an approach to an airport with TACAN installed. As a rule of thumb, you will descend 320 feet per nautical mile when you fly a 3-degree descent gradient. Easy peasy. On the pedestal, we have the control panel for the UHF radio and for the TACAN. Below is the controls for the gun sight, and further down is a circuit breaker panel. The control stick has the following controls: pitch and aileron trim. It's called a turtle because it's shaped like a cone and can move in all directions. We have bomb and rocket button, a trigger to fire guns, launch missiles and run the camera, rain removal, nozzle steering, and finally the pitch damper cutoff switch. Back to the instrument panel. We have a clock with a chronograph. Below is a turn and bank indicator, which is a backup if the other gyro instruments have failed. Below is a G-meter. Without pylons, the limit for the E model is plus 7.3 G and minus 3 G. Fully loaded, the limit is plus 4 and minus 1.5 G. I think the A model have the same limitations. This switch is for the IFF antennas. IAF means identification, friend or foe, and works like a transponder. There are two antennas, one below and one above the fuselage. The default position is both. To the right are the engine instruments. The RPM indicator shows engine RPM in percent. At 100%, engine RPM is 16,500. Normal operating RPM is 80 to 103%. Maximum allowed is 107%. The temperature indicators show the EGT. which is measured aft of the turbine in hundreds of degrees Celsius. The red lines mark the following limitations: minimum operation, 140 degrees, maximum operation, 650 degrees, and never exceed during engine start, 925 degrees. The green arc shows normal operation range, from 140 to 600 degrees. The nozzle position indicator is graded in percent. Fighter jets have adjustable exhaust nozzles. The purpose is to optimize engine thrust at different power settings and atmospheric conditions. They also have an impact on the aircraft's aerodynamic drag. At 0%, the exhaust nozzle diameter is at the minimum. At 100%, it's fully open. This operation is automatic. At idle power, the nozzle is at 70 to 80%. At military power, which is full power without afterburner, it's between 0 and 16%. With the afterburner engaged, is 50 to 80% open. I don't have a video of the F5 to show the operation of the nozzles, but I have a video of an F-18 from Microsoft Flight Simulator. The numbers are slightly different, but it should do the trick. At idle power, the nozzles are 80% open. At full military power, the nozzle's opening is at minimum, 0%. And when the afterburner is engaged, they quickly move to fully open, 100%. Below are the fuel flow indicators. They are graded in thousands of pounds per hour. Further right, starting from the top, we have master caution and warning lights. The pressure for the utility and flight control hydraulic systems is shown in thousands of psi, pounds per square inch. Normal pressure is 3000 psi. Next, we have the engine oil pressure indicators. Normal pressure range is from 20 to 55 psi. Maximum is 100 psi. And finally, we have the fuel quantity indicators, indicated hundreds of pounds. As I said in the previous video, the F5 has 2 tanks in the fuselage with a total capacity of 585 US gallons, or 2,214 liters. However, it's more accurate to measure the mass of the fuel than the volume, as the fuel reduces in volume when it's cooled down. We start with the cabin pressurization and temperature panel. The cabin pressurization works automatically and has a guarded switch labeled ram dump. It is used to unpressurize the cabin. The cabin pressure indicator is on the left side panel. Below is the canopy defog knob. It directs warm air to the windshield. Cabin temperature is controlled with a switch and a knob. In normal operation, the switch is set in auto, and the knob is used to set the temperature. The temperature scale is Fahrenheit. 40 degrees Fahrenheit is 4 degrees Celsius, and 100 Fahrenheit is 38 degrees Celsius. If the temperature controller doesn't work properly, it can be overridden by select manual cold and manual hot with this switch. Below are 5 switches. The first is for the pitot heat, which prevents ice to form on the pitot tube. Next, we have engine anti-ice, which is hot air supply to the engine inlet guide vanes. The hot air comes from the engine compressor. Next is compressor bleed. When selected on, it will, at high altitude and low airspeed, automatically open a valve in the engine compressor. This stabilizes the air pressure in both engines and reduces the risk for compressor stall. Excessive air is discarded through one of those vents. The duct anti-ice provides electrical heating of the engine air intakes. This is a modification made for aircraft delivered to Norway. Then we have the fuel system, When external tanks are installed, the sequence is as following. First, you use the fuel from the tip tanks, then the wing tanks, and then from the center line tank, and then from the internal tanks. The left-hand engine is supplied from the forward fuel tank, and the right-hand engine is supplied from the aft fuel tank. If the engines run at different power, or one engine has stopped, the fuel in the internal fuel tanks must be balanced with the crossfeed valves. The boost pump on the side with the most fuel is kept on, and the other boost pump is switched off. To the right is a switch used to test the fuel and oxygen quantity indicators. This is an air duct from the air conditioning system. We saw it during the walk-around in the previous video. The yellow T-handle is used to get rid of the canopy in an emergency. It is secured with a safety pin when the aircraft is parked on the ground. Below is the battery switch and the generator switches. The generator switches are guarded in the on position. The other positions are off and reset. This indicator shows the quantity of liquid oxygen and is graded in liters. This is the panel for crew oxygen supply. We have an on-off switch and we have an oxygen pressure indicator. This is a selector for 100% or normal oxygen supply. And the last switch is for emergency or normal supply, plus a test function for the oxygen mask. Below is the caution light panel. The handle on the side is used to open and close the canopy. It is now in the open position. Next follows the control panel for the IFF/SIF. IFF means identification friend or foe. SIF means selective identification feature. Before the flight, the pilot will be assigned a code which is entered into this box. Then the radar operators and friendly aircraft will know who you are. Behind is a control panel for the cockpit lights. And further aft there is a map compartment and a circuit breaker panel. And that's all for this time. A big thank goes to former F-5 staff at the Royal Norwegian Air Force. They have provided pictures and information. In the next video we will have a look at the second generation F-5, the EF and N Tiger II models. Until then, thank you for watching, have a wonderful day and happy landing!